Very few get as close to the sheer brutality and lust for war as of the orcs. Today, I'll be painting an orc brute rager. I'll show you extremely easy ways on painting simple orc skin, rusted armor, and irritated skin and gore. Thank you for tuning in. Let's begin. Before priming with Chaos Black from Citadel, I prepped the mini using liquid green stuff straight from the pot. I applied this to all the metallic areas. I tapped and dabbed, randomly, making sure I cover all of the metallic surfaces. I did, however, not go all in on the weapon and chains. When the liquid green stuff is fully dried, I went in with a hobby knife, randomly cutting, stabbing and scratching all of the armor surfaces, weapon and chains included. When the armor damage is done, grab a stiff brush and give it a good brushing all over, removing all of the plastic and green stuff leftovers. You do not want those there when you apply the primer. I primed it using Chaos Black from Citadel, and then went in with base coating all of the skin, using Castellan Green. Make sure you take your time with this step. I applied Castellan Green in about 2 to 3 thin coats. I watered it down slightly on my wet palette. Next up, we're gonna highlight all the skin. I made a 1-to-1 mix of Castellan Green and Elysian Green. I then very subtle highlighted all of the skin areas. During this stage, it doesn't make a huge difference. You're gonna have to trust the process. Now the base coating for the skin is done, we're gonna go in and cover all the armor parts using Iron Warriors. I'm not being too careful covering all of the areas when painting metallics. Accidentally missing some parts out in crevices just makes for natural shadows. Should you make any mistake here and accidentally hit some of the metallics on the skin or on other parts, it's no big issue. Just go back with the prior color and cover it. Next up is lead belcher. Now the difference here is minimal and absolutely not needed. The only reason I went in with a slightly brighter silver metallic for the chains and the weapons is because I wanted some variety. And for the leather parts. For the pants here and the belt around his waist, I went in with some rhinox hide. But you can use whatever dark or bright brown leather paint you want. Now for some Carthaginian flesh. I don't even know if I pronounced that right. Whatever. I use it on the wraps around his arms and legs. Again, be as neat and careful as you can here. But should you accidentally hit another area, just go back with the prior color. Now, to highlight the leather parts, I went in with Carthaginian flesh and randomly stippled it on the leather pads. And for the wraps, I went in with a random, even brighter brown leather paint. Just random stippling it on. No fine edge highlighting. For the cloth hanging beneath his front armor piece, I went in with some corn red. Now, to highlight the cloth, I went in with some kinda watered down Mephiston red. Just random stippling, dabbing and dragging it across all the raised areas. Next up, some white scar. The reason I'm painting the tongue white is because we're gonna go in and paint it with some contrast paints. So we need the bright foundation. That tongue got a quick coating of blood angel red contrast. And don't worry about hitting the teeth, we're gonna go in and cover those later. Now we're coming in with some screaming skull. This is probably my all-time favorite off-white color for any type of bone part. And do your best here to be as neat and tidy as possible. You don't want to hit the tongue. It's more unforgiving to cover up a contrast paint, in my opinion. Now all of the base colors are in place and we're starting to get somewhere. But before we can continue with the enamels, we're gonna go in with some dirty down rust. Now I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. It's arguably one of the absolute best rust products that exists. It dries matte within seconds and looks super realistic. Now I'm gonna cover all of the armor areas and weapon areas with this. You might think that the base color was unnecessary, since all of it's gonna be covered anyway, but I assure you, the base color under the rust makes a huge difference. You can see here how it's already dried, looking chalky, crusty and grimy. Now, I'm not afraid to let it build up a little bit in some areas. It just makes it more interesting and gives more variety to the rust. Like it's thicker, darker in some areas and brighter in some. Alright, now this is where it's gonna make a huge difference on the armor. I'm going in with a lightly loaded brush of Iron Warriors again, giving all of the armor parts a very gentle dry brush, mostly catching all of the raised areas. Again, for the chains and the weapon, I switched to lead belcher. Again, this makes almost no difference. I imagine this brute being chained for a while, only released into battle, thus the chain not being a part of the armor originally. That's why I used a slightly different metallic. Now, you can grab 2 random grays for the last acrylics we'll be using for this. I used Skaven Blight Dinge and Storm Vermin Fur on the little rock he's standing on. And also, good to remember to correct any mistakes you've done on the acrylic so far, if you hit the wrong color on the wrong area and so on. After the enamels are applied, it's gonna be hard to correct. Now this is where the fun begins. For starter, I'm using Goon's Grime from Villainy inks. I mixed this 50-50 with white spirits. I applied this to all areas, even the skin and armor and weapons and so on. I feel like Goon's Grime is one of the more versatile enamels. It can be used for literally anything. And usually I'm not afraid to use too much of it. However, I do watch out for pooling. I'd say wait at least 30 minutes for it to dry, or if you're impatient like me, use a hairdryer on medium heat for about 40 seconds. I then went in with a reductive technique, using a Q-tip dipped in white spirits. Now, for one of the most satisfying parts of painting a mini, sector rust from the villainy inks ring. I used this almost neat. I mixed it about 1 to 5 white spirits, randomly tapping in some crevices and areas where I think it will fit. And same here. Once I was done, I went in with the hairdryer on medium heat for about 30 seconds, and then went in with a removal pass using the same technique as before, tapping and dabbing on the most raised and prominent areas. Now, Villainy Inks Carrion Crimson. I mixed about 1/3 white spirits to Carrion Crimson here, tapping in and dabbing on areas where I feel like there will be irritation on the skin or gore. The lesser you mix it, the more gore it's gonna be. It's an extremely versatile enamel. That's what I say is the most beautiful thing about the Villainy Inks range. They're extremely versatile and each enamel can be used for numerous of things. Now, while waiting for all the enamels to dry, I went back to some dirty down rust, but way more sparingly this time, just dabbing it on certain areas. Now for some blood. I used Army Painter's blood effects for this. This is the only Army Painter paint I really use. I really wish I could use more of them, since there is nothing really wrong with the paints themselves. But I'd rather stick to the Citadel acrylics, since I don't have to varnish my miniatures. For basing, I went for something extremely simple this time. I went with some PV8 glue and just dipping it in a jar of A Tale of Grimdark by Acrylic. Before I show some detailed close-up photos and a rotating video, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you found it entertaining, learned something, or even found my thick Swedish accent funny, please consider subscribing and liking. With that said, I bid thee farewell. Until next time, my friends.